My girlfriend cheated with a venture capitalist and said I wasn't high tier enough, so I walked away and returned with a gift that left her terrified. I'm Noah. I'm 30, a civil engineer, and the kind of guy people describe as steady. That's code for boring, but I'm fine with it. My job's about making sure buildings don't fall over, which feels like a decent metaphor for life. I like things that stay upright. 3 years ago, during a renovation project, I met Clara. She came in as the new interior designer for a boutique hotel we were refitting. First thing I noticed was how she talked with her hands. Every idea had choreography. She had this way of making paint colors sound like destiny. I thought it was funny. She thought I was quiet in a mysterious way. I wasn't. I just didn't like yelling over people. The first week we worked together, she called me Mr. Structural Integrity. I said, better than Mr. Collapse. She laughed like I was the funniest man alive, and that was it. We started getting lunch after site meetings. She'd pick cafes with weird chairs that hurt to sit on but looked great in pictures. I went along with it. She liked that I listened. I liked that she filled silence without making it awkward. She'd talk about color palettes, clients, and lighting. I'd nod and ask just enough questions to keep it going. Somehow it worked. She said I made her feel calm. I said she made me feel awake. At the time, that sounded romantic. After a few months, we started seeing each other outside work. Her apartment looked like Pinterest threw up in it. Plants hanging from macrame ropes, tiny mirrors, pastel cushions with words like breathe stitched on them. Mine looked like a storage unit with Wi-Fi. We started spending weekends together, then weeks, then somehow it became a relationship. When her contract ended, she started freelancing. Work was unstable and she stressed about clients who wanted everything for exposure. I tried to help where I could, set up her website, made her a logo, built a small photo wall in her living room for her portfolio shoots. She said I was so supportive, which I think meant free labor. I didn't mind. Seeing her excited about work felt good. About a year in, she moved into my place. Well, technically, we both moved into a new one. A loft near downtown. Open brick walls, big windows, expensive rent. She picked it because of the lighting. I picked it because it was structurally sound. Compromise, I guess. Within a week, she turned it into a showroom. Half the furniture was for photos only. If I moved a pillow, she'd move it back like it was sacred geometry. She had a thing for plants. At one point, I counted 27. I joked that her plants had more square footage than I did. She said, they make the space alive. I said, so would oxygen, but sure. She rolled her eyes and kissed me, and for a while that was enough. We got comfortable. I'd come home covered in dust and concrete smell. She'd be editing photos on her laptop with a face mask on. Dinner was usually something she found in a blog. Quinoa, kale, or something pretending to be pasta. She'd tell me about annoying clients. I'd tell her about a project delay. She said my job sounded repetitive. I told her that was kind of the point. You want bridges to be predictable. The first real sign of trouble came small. She started using our apartment for content. One day, I came home to find the entire kitchen rearranged for better angles. The next day, she asked me to avoid walking in the background when she filmed. Another time, she stopped mid-lunch because my fork didn't match the plate aesthetic. I switched forks. She still looked annoyed. Her phone was always in her hand. She filmed everything. Morning coffee, unboxing candles, fake laughs. She once made me redo a goodbye hug because the light was better. I joked. Didn't know I needed to hit my mark. She didn't laugh. Her followers grew and so did her attitude. She'd throw around words like brand and engagement. I started to realize our life was becoming her content. She once told me, you're lucky you get to be part of the creative process. I said, I thought we were in a relationship, not a commercial. She didn't reply, just changed the subject to filters. Still, I stayed patient. She wasn't mean, just absorbed in herself. I figured it was a phase. I worked long hours anyway. My job was stable. Her world was chaotic. I tried not to take her moods personally. She'd come home from events buzzing with names I didn't know. Photographers, stylists, collab partners. She'd show me photos and I'd nod like I cared about ring lights and brand deals. Once during dinner, she laughed at one of her phone notifications and said, you really should post more. People think you're like invisible. I said, that's because I'm busy doing the things people post about. She didn't like that. She said I sounded condescending. I said she sounded like a walking ad. We didn't talk the rest of the night. Despite all that, there were good moments. Sunday mornings with no alarms. Her humming while making coffee. The way she'd fall asleep mid-sentence. Those things made the rest tolerable. I told myself she just needed time to settle into her career. The truth is, I saw the cracks early. I just ignored them because everything else looked nice from far away. Back then, I figured her spark was just charm. Turns out it was a warning light. I just didn't read the dashboard. Clara's page took off faster than either of us expected. One post about affordable apartment makeovers hit 50,000 likes, and overnight she was an emerging voice in lifestyle design. Brands started sending her candles, throw blankets, and enough oat milk to flood the fridge. Every package that arrived came with the same line. Would love for you to share this with your audience. At first, I was happy for her. I helped shoot her content because I was decent with lighting. Then helping quietly became a full-time side job. Once I asked if she ever planned to tag me, she laughed and said, "Babe, my followers don't need to know the logistics." That became my unofficial title. The guy who handles logistics. She started hanging out with other creators. I met them once at a brunch that looked like a casting call. Every conversation was about followers, sponsors, or mental health in the tone of a sales pitch. I told one guy I worked in civil engineering. He blinked like I'd said I farmed potatoes. Clara jumped in fast. He's super smart. Does, structural stuff. The guy nodded, unimpressed. She changed the topic to lighting setups. Later, I told her friends talked like LinkedIn had a baby with reality TV. She said, "You just don't get networking." I said, "I do. I just prefer it without hashtags." Her tone with me shifted after that. She started offering helpful suggestions about my look. "You should dress sharper," she'd say while adjusting her camera. "You'd photograph better." She started sending me links to minimalist sneakers and clean jackets. I bought one pair to keep the peace. She said it still wasn't the right vibe. Every day the loft looked less like a home and more like a set. She rearranged furniture for angles, replaced my favorite mug because it clashed with the palette and banned me from the living room during golden hour. I used to joke that I was the roommate paying rent to a production company. Then came the morning that still makes me laugh. It was a Saturday. I'd gone out early for groceries. She was home filming one of her morning matcha routine live streams. I opened the door quietly and set the bags on the counter. She was mid-speech telling the camera how small changes create peace or something. Without thinking, I said, "Got your oat milk." She froze. The camera kept rolling. "Which one did you get?" she asked, voice still sugary for the audience. I held up the carton. "This one. It was on sale." Her smile cracked. "That's the wrong brand." I blinked. "It's oat milk." "How different can it be?" She turned fully toward me, ignoring the live chat that was probably wondering who the random guy in the background was. "It doesn't foam right, Noah. I can't use that one." I looked at the carton, then at her ring light. "Didn't realize milk could affect your career trajectory." Her eyes narrowed. "You never pay attention." "Pretty sure I just paid attention enough to buy oat milk." She huffed, mumbled something about consistency for the brand, and stormed off. The camera was still on. I swear the comment section was losing it. I put the milk in the fridge and said quietly, "Imagine getting dumped over oat milk one day." That line aged well. After that, she barely talked to me for 2 days when she did. It was to remind me about an event she had that week, networking dinner with real professionals, she said, emphasizing real. I said, "So, I'll just stay home and handle the fake ones." She didn't even smile. Little things stacked up. I'd come home from work and she'd already be dressed up, perfume cloud thick enough to choke a small bird. She'd say, "I'm meeting people who can elevate me." I said, "What am I, the ground floor?" She rolled her eyes. She started comparing me to men from her circles, entrepreneurs, creatives, guys who traveled for brand shoots. "You could be doing more with your skills," she'd say. I told her I built bridges in schools, not mood boards. She said I was being defensive. I said she was being ungrateful. That ended with her slamming a cabinet because apparently it messed with her vibe. By then, I'd stopped expecting warmth. She'd walk around rehearsing lines for videos, face switching between fake smiles and annoyed expressions whenever I moved behind her. I could tell the camera version of her was the one she liked best. I didn't hate her for it. I just didn't recognize her anymore. One night she came home from another influencer event, glowing from compliments. I asked how it went. She said, "You'd have loved it. Everyone was so driven." I said, "Yeah, I bet ambition looks better with ring lights." She didn't talk to me the rest of the night. Still, I stayed calm. I figured she'd tire of the constant showing off. Instead, she doubled down. She told me I should rebrand myself, too. Start a professional Instagram, show off project photos, market my expertise. I said, I build things so people don't die under them. That's enough marketing for me. The distance between us wasn't explosive. It was quiet. She was out most nights at collab dinners or industry mixers. I'd eat leftovers and scroll past her stories. Champagne, laughter, the same pose every time. When she'd finally get home, she'd complain about people being fake. I'd nod, thinking she didn't realize she'd become one of them. Clara texted me on a Wednesday afternoon. "Dinner Friday night, 8 p.m. at Lumiere. Celebration dinner. Dress nice. No context, no explanation, just that." Lumiere was one of those rooftop restaurants with more glass than walls, the type of place where the menu doesn't have prices, only confidence. I figured we were celebrating another sponsorship deal. Friday came. I showed up 5 minutes early. She arrived 25 minutes late, smelling like perfume and self-importance. Her dress looked expensive, enough to need insurance. Traffic was insane, she said, sitting down, still scrolling on her phone. "Sorry, babe." "It's fine," I said. I ordered water. Didn't want to risk getting thirsty mid-scroll. She laughed without looking up. "You're funny." We ordered. She went for something with truffle foam. I picked the burger because at least I knew what it was pretending to be. She took a few pictures of the table setup before saying anything meaningful. So, I started. What are we celebrating? She smiled like I just asked the setup to her favorite speech. A lot's been happening lately. My engagement numbers are up. The agency I've been talking to in LA wants to take me on officially. It's kind of a big deal. Congrats, I said. So, what's the dinner for? It's for me realizing I need to start aligning my life with that direction. She leaned in, tone serious now. The people around me have to reflect where I'm going. I blinked. You mean like networking? She shook her head, eyes bright. No, like alignment. My agency says image matters. Who you're with sends a message, and honestly, I've been thinking about it a lot. I just feel like you're not really growing with me. Growing? I asked. Yeah. I mean, you're good at what you do, sure, but you're comfortable, safe, you never push yourself. You don't stand out. She gestured vaguely, like she was explaining color theory to a kindergartner. You're just normal, Noah. I looked at her for a second. Normal is not illegal. She sighed dramatically. See, that's what I mean. You don't get it. My friends' partners are founders, creatives, entrepreneurs. They have stories. You build bridges. Bridges are useful, I said. They hold things together. She ignored that. You're a good guy, but you don't elevate me. When people ask about you, I don't know what to say that sounds impressive. Didn't realize I was supposed to be your LinkedIn headline, I said. Don't be like that, she snapped. This is about image, not feelings. My brand's about ambition and progress. You sitting behind a computer in boots all day doesn't exactly scream aspiration. I leaned back, trying not to smile. You've turned into a marketing slogan. Her eyes narrowed. You know, you could have been part of this if you tried harder, but you're fine being average, and I'm not. I want more. I deserve more. I nodded slowly. And more is... She straightened up, ready for her big reveal. His name's Evan. He's in venture capital. He invests in startups, travels, knows everyone worth knowing. He understands my world. I paused. Drives a Tesla, right? She smiled like I'd guessed her favorite color. Yes, actually, of course. She kept going, clearly enjoying her own monologue. We just connect on a different level. He challenges me. He says I have potential to be more than just a designer. He sees me. That's sweet, I said flatly. You found your business mentor soulmate. She frowned. You're being sarcastic. I'm being calm, I said. I don't yell during PowerPoint presentations. Noah, don't twist this. I'm trying to be kind. Right, I said, by dumping me over dinner at a restaurant made of glass. She rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic. This is about personal growth. Yours, I said. Yes, mine, she said sharply. You're stable and that's fine, but stability is boring. I need ambition, energy, someone who pushes me. Someone photogenic, I said. She glared. You always make jokes when things get serious, and you always make things serious when they're just shallow, I said. Guess we balance out. Her lips tightened. I'm trying to handle this maturely. You could at least not act like a child. I nodded. Sure, you're leaving me for a man with a better filter. That's very mature. She looked annoyed. Maybe because I wasn't falling apart like she wanted. You'll regret being this cold. No one else is going to put up with your emotional distance. I'd rather be distant than performative, I said. You think you're better than me? No, I just think I'm realer. She sat back, arms crossed. Wow, you really don't care, do you? I finished my drink, tapped my card. I cared, I said, right up until this turned into a TED Talk on your self-esteem. Her face twisted somewhere between anger and disbelief. That's it. You're just walking out? Pretty much, I said, standing up. Good luck with your rebrand, Clara. I hope Evan's as ambitious as your expectations. She called after me, voice sharp now. You'll regret this. I turned just enough to meet her eyes. No, I said, you will. The moment the algorithm stops caring. Then I left her sitting there surrounded by glass walls staring at her reflection. When I got home, I dropped my keys on the counter and opened my phone. Out of habit, I checked Instagram. There it was. Clara's post from Lumiere uploaded after I left. She'd met Evan there. Caption, New Beginnings. Evan was tagged. He looked exactly how I imagined. Sharp suit, shiny watch. Expression like he was used to getting the good lighting. I made instant noodles, ate them straight from the pot, and slept better than I had in months. 2 days after the dinner, I packed, not because she told me to leave, but because I didn't want to share air with that kind of noise anymore. Clara kept the loft, of course. She'd already filled it with brand boxes and ring lights. I didn't argue. I took my tools, clothes, laptop, and the couch I bought before we met. Everything else could stay staged for her followers. I rented a small one-bedroom near my job, the kind of place where the fridge hums louder than the neighbors. When I unpacked, I found her old vision board in one of my boxes. It had somehow followed me. Cutouts of beaches, motivational quotes, a picture of a Tesla that aged poorly in hindsight. I took scissors and cut it into bookmarks. At least it's useful now, I said, sliding one into the manual for my coffee machine. The silence in that apartment hit different. The first night I noticed how much noise she used to make. Typing, humming, fake laughing at her phone. I kept expecting to hear it, but all I got was the sound of the ceiling fan clicking every few seconds. Oddly enough, it felt like breathing again after being underwater too long. A week later, I signed a 6-month contract with a coastal reconstruction team out of town. Storm damage work. Real hours, real dirt, no Instagram influencers. It paid well and came with something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Work started before sunrise. The air smelled like salt and steel. We'd rebuild piers, fix concrete foundations, and eat lunch on toolboxes. Nobody cared what brand of boots you wore. My hands got calloused again, which felt right. After work, I'd walk along the shore until the noise in my head finally leveled out. The first weekend there, I posted a short note on my old LinkedIn. Something simple about how rebuilding structures teaches patience and how sometimes damage isn't permanent. I didn't think anyone would notice. A week later, the post had thousands of likes and comments from strangers saying it hit home. I laughed. Months of her curated posts couldn't touch one paragraph written by accident. I got into small routines, cooked instead of ordering out. My meals looked like nothing you'd photograph. Burnt edges, uneven cuts, but edible. I even started running in the mornings, not for fitness, just to burn leftover thoughts. After a few weeks, I realized I hadn't checked Clara's page once on my own, not even out of curiosity. That was new. Some nights, the crew would hang out at a diner after shifts. Guys talking about everything from tools to family drama. Nobody asked about followers or engagement. They just talked like humans. One of them, a guy named Miguel, joked that I was the quiet one. I told him, I've used up my conversation quota for the year. He laughed and handed me fries. That was enough. The longer I stayed, the more the static in my brain cleared. I didn't feel angry anymore, just detached. It's strange how fast people fade once you stop feeding the thought of them. I could barely remember the tone of her voice without a filter on it. A few times I'd drive past the water after work and park for no reason. Just watch the waves hit the pier we just repaired. It wasn't some dramatic reflection moment, just simple, quiet satisfaction. Things were holding again, literally and figuratively. I started to like the silence. It didn't demand attention. It didn't post quotes about healing. At night, I'd sit by the window with a cheap instant coffee and scroll through project plans. Sometimes, I'd catch myself smiling at how simple everything had become. No deadlines that weren't real. No fake energy, just work, rest, and a bed that didn't smell like overpriced candles. Around month 4, the project lead asked me to extend. I said yes and took the 6-month stint to 9. The city life could wait. I wasn't done resetting yet. By month 5 of 9, I'd learned how to enjoy my own company again. I cooked better, ran farther, even started sketching bridge designs in a notebook just for fun. I wasn't reinventing myself. I was just remembering what it felt like to live without performing for someone else. One evening, Miguel asked about the girl who used to call me mid-shift back when I first started. I told him she was gone. He shrugged. Better now? He asked. I said, yeah, much better. He smiled. Good. Quiet suits you. On my second to last night on site, I sat on the half-finished pier, watching the sky go from blue to orange. The structure creaked slightly under the tide, steady but alive. I realized I hadn't once thought about her future, her followers, or whether she'd noticed mine. None of it mattered anymore. When it ended, I didn't cry. I didn't spiral or text her. I just rebuilt, one slow day at a time. Turns out quiet doesn't mean lonely. Sometimes it's just peace. Finally having room to exist. Or after I extended to 9 months, the second half brought new people, most notably Iris. She showed up one morning carrying a camera bag bigger than her, boots covered in sand, hair tied up like she didn't care how it looked, which somehow worked better than the people who did. She was the project's photographer, hired to document restoration progress for the community board. Most of the team avoided her at first. Cameras make construction workers nervous, but she didn't hover or force small talk. She just moved around quietly, snapping photos of beams, tools, rust, sunlight on wet metal. I liked that she seemed to be working, not performing. Our first real conversation started over a broken tripod. I was adjusting a railing nearby and she muttered, "This thing's supposed to stand still, not die dramatically." I said, "Sounds like half our equipment." And she smirked and asked if I could fix it. I took a look, tightened a bolt and handed it back. She said, "You're basically an engineer for everything, huh?" I said, "That's the job description." She nodded. Structurally sound, poor fashion choices though. I blinked. "Excuse me?" She pointed at my work boots, scratched, covered in dried cement. "Those things have seen war. They've survived oat milk incidents," I said before thinking. She laughed genuinely. "The kind that doesn't foam, right?" "That sounds like a story," I said. "A stupid one." She grinned. "My favorite kind, that was it." We got along easily after that. No forced charm, no filters. She'd walk with me during lunch, taking random photos of puddles, pipes, cranes, all the stuff people usually edit out. I once asked why she bothered. She said because that's what actually tells the story. Not the before and after, but the in-between. I thought about that a lot. Clara had always cared about the after. Iris liked the mess. A few weeks later, The city requested a proposal for a small public park near the rebuilt area, benches, a walking trail, a mural wall. Our supervisor asked me to lead the design since I'd been on site the longest. I said I'd do it if Iris handled the visuals. She agreed immediately. We spent evenings sketching ideas at a diner near the site. We submitted the design and a month later it got approved. The town loved it. It wasn't fancy, but it was solid and usable, a space people could actually enjoy. Iris printed a few of the progress shots and hung them in the community center. People kept asking if we were a team. I said, yeah, kind of. She said, he builds. I make it look like art. That weekend, the crew hosted a small picnic at the site to celebrate the green light. Iris brought a cooler full of sandwiches and dared me to eat one without spilling mustard. I failed instantly. She took a photo mid-fall. I told her to delete it. She said it was her favorite. We started spending time together outside work, hiking trails, random road trips to nearby towns. Nothing fancy, no filters, no constant posting, just two people doing things for themselves. She played music I'd never heard of, indie stuff with too much guitar, and I introduced her to my weird mix of instrumental playlists. We'd trade phones to make each other listen to songs we liked, then argue about which one was better. Once she bet me I couldn't go a full weekend without checking messages or email. I said, that's easy. She said, prove it. She lasted 6 hours before reaching for her phone first. I didn't let her forget it. She called me boring once, but not in a mean way. We were sitting on a bench watching the tide come in. She said, you're the kind of boring people should want. Consistent, calm, no hidden script. I said, that's just code for not being chaotic enough to trend. She smiled. Exactly, that's a compliment. It hit me later that she never asked what I earned or who I knew. She just noticed if I was listening. The silence between us wasn't awkward. It was easy. That was new. When the project wrapped, the city hosted a small community event at the park. Kids ran around the benches we'd designed. Parents took pictures in front of the mural. Someone handed us certificates of appreciation, which we both found funny. Iris whispered, we're officially overqualified to exist. That night, we stayed late after everyone left, sitting by the railing overlooking the bay. She asked if I missed the city. I said, no. She nodded like she already knew. You're not really a city guy, are you? She said. Not since it started raiding people. She laughed, resting her chin on her knees. You ever think you'll go back? Maybe, I said, but not for the same reasons. We stayed like that for a while, not talking, just watching the lights ripple across the water. A week later, the contract officially ended. Most of the team packed up and left, but Iris and I kept in touch. Texts about random things, photos of sunsets, jokes about crooked benches, playlists we'd swapped. She once sent me a blurry photo of a seagull with the caption, you in bird form. I replied, sturdy posture though. It wasn't some movie-style romance, just two people who'd both seen enough fake to appreciate something normal. 3 months after the coastal project ended, I was back home working remote contracts. Life simple again. Quiet mornings, coffee without ring lights. One night, my phone buzzed. It was Chris, a mutual friend who somehow stayed neutral through everything. Bro, you've seen the news about Evan? He sent a link. The so-called venture capitalist was a fraud. Fake investors, unpaid staff, and half his portfolio was smoke and mirrors. He wasn't funding startups. He was borrowing money and vanishing. I wasn't surprised. Evan always had scam energy. Then another text from Chris. Clara's tagged in the article too. I opened it. There she was, smiling next to him in a fake eco-startup ad. Caption, influencer collaboration gone wrong. I laughed out loud. Perfect karma. Her Instagram looked like a ghost town. Comments full of people asking if she was involved, others calling her fake. Most posts were deleted and the rest were flooded with "this didn't age well." Then came her story. White text on a black background. Sometimes you realize not everyone you trust deserves it. Classic. Chris called the next morning. She's trending for all the wrong reasons. One sponsor already dropped her. Guess karma finally learned how to use Wi-Fi, I said. He asked if I felt bad. I didn't. She spent years chasing attention. She finally caught it. Over the week, I saw updates from mutuals. Her follower count dropped by thousands. The same friends who used to brag about her were pretending they'd barely known her. Meanwhile, things were picking up for me. The park project Iris and I designed got featured in a local architecture blog. Then a national magazine reached out for an interview about sustainable urban spaces. I almost said no, but Iris convinced me. During the interview, the writer asked if I believed in second chances. Sure, I said, for people who actually learned something the first time. That line ended up printed next to a photo of the park. The universe has good timing sometimes. A few days later, Iris texted me. She's back. Clara had rebranded. New handle, muted aesthetic, same recycled captions. Her bio read, learning, evolving, grateful. The first post was a moody black and white selfie with, sometimes losing everything sets you free. Iris sent another message. Do people always talk like this when they mess up? Only when they think pain's a marketing strategy, I replied. She laughed. You're brutal. I'm realistic. You can't pity someone who thought empathy was bad PR. I stopped checking after that. It wasn't satisfaction. It was confirmation. She'd built her life on a highlight reel, and the second it cracked, she didn't know who she was. Work kept moving quietly forward. I started consulting full-time, picked up 2 city projects, and taught a short course online. Iris came along to shoot photos for a few builds. People assumed we were dating. We didn't label it. We didn't need to. After long days, we'd sit on my car hood by the pier and rate cheesy quotes she found online. The comeback is always stronger than the setback she'd read. 2 stars, I'd say. Needs accountability. We'd laugh until the sky went dark. Every so often, strangers would message me after seeing the article, thanking me for being authentic. I never replied, but it was nice knowing that just being normal had somehow become interesting. Funny thing, authenticity. The one thing Clara always faked was what worked when I wasn't even trying. A month later, Chris called again. You'll love this. Evan got arrested. Clara posted a crying video saying she was manipulated. Of course she did, I said. Victim arc unlocked. He laughed. You're cold, man. Not cold, I said, just done. Later that night, I found an old photo of the park at sunset. Kids laughing, sky turning gold, peaceful, real. That's when it hit me. The best revenge isn't loud, it's just living well enough that the people who doubted you have to watch from the sidelines. She stayed blocked. Peace doesn't need push notifications. Karma's algorithm doesn't miss a post, and it still works better than any influencer campaign ever could. It was one of those heavy gray afternoons when the air feels like it's waiting to fall apart. Iris and I were sitting in a corner cafe reviewing some photo prints for an upcoming project. She had her camera spread across the table and I was sketching layout adjustments on a napkin. The window fogged from the rain outside, blurring the street into streaks of light. The bell above the door rang. I barely looked up, just another soaked customer. Then I heard a voice I hadn't heard in over a year. Noah. I looked up. Clara stood near the entrance, drenched, hair plastered to her face, clutching a leather folder that looked half ruined from the weather. She hesitated, scanning the cafe until our eyes met. For a second, she looked unsure whether to walk over or walk out. I didn't move. She approached anyway. She stopped by our table, dripping water onto the floor. You look different, she said quietly, eyes flicking between me and Iris. Guess good lighting finally found me, I said. Iris glanced up from the prints, instantly reading the situation. I'll grab us refills, she said, standing up and giving me a small nod before heading to the counter. Clara pulled out the chair across from me without asking and sat down. I didn't mean to interrupt, she said, though she clearly did. You did? I replied calmly. She exhaled. I just needed to talk to you, please. The last time I'd seen her, she was surrounded by glass and ego. Now she looked small, like the version left over after the filters were gone. She rubbed her arms for warmth. Everything's gone, she said finally. The agency, the sponsors, the apartment, even some of my friends stopped answering my messages. It's like I disappeared overnight. I nodded. Algorithms can be cruel. She frowned slightly. You don't have to be sarcastic. I wasn't trying to be, I said. Just accurate. She stared at her hands. I made mistakes, Noah. I believed people who only wanted to use me. I thought image was everything and it wasn't. It's like I built my whole life on glass. And when one panel cracked, everything collapsed. That tends to happen when the foundation's fake, I said. Her eyes lifted. I miss you. I leaned back. You miss the version of me that didn't make you feel small. The one you could use to look grounded while you reached higher. That version's retired. She shook her head. You don't understand. I've changed. I know what really matters now. I just need a second chance to prove it. Prove what? I asked, starting over with someone who measured my worth in Instagram filters. You didn't lose me, Clara. You lost the illusion that I'd always be waiting. Her voice cracked. You think you're perfect now? You think because your name's in some magazine you're better than me? No, I said. I just stopped needing other people's applause to feel enough. For a moment, all we heard was rain pounding against the windows. The cafe smelled like wet coats and coffee grounds. She blinked fast, trying to hold herself together. I thought you'd at least care, she whispered. I did, I said. Iris returned holding 2 cups. She looked at Clara, then at me. Everything okay here? Yeah, I said, taking mine. Just some old paperwork being closed. Clara stood up abruptly, grabbing her folder. I hope you're happy, she said, voice shaking. I am, I replied simply. She stared at me another second, then left. The door chimed as she stepped into the downpour. Through the fogged glass, I watched her cross the street without an umbrella, her reflection vanishing in the puddles. Iris sat down again, raising an eyebrow. That looked intense. Not really, I said. More like overdue maintenance. She smirked. Closure? Weatherproof closure, I said, nodding toward the rain. We went back to reviewing prints. The storm kept hitting the window, steady and rhythmic, but somehow it sounded peaceful now. Months later, I was invited to give a short talk at a small community event. The topic was designing with purpose, but I ended up calling it Foundations over Facades. It wasn't about architecture as much as it was about people, how strength comes from what's underneath, not what shines on top. The room wasn't huge, just a couple dozen locals, students, and some city officials. Iris sat in the front row, camera ready. I wasn't nervous this time. When I finished, people clapped. Not loud, but real. I looked at Iris and smiled. Walking off the small stage, I thought about how different that applause felt from the fake kind I used to hear through someone else's phone. This one didn't demand anything. It didn't feed on validation. It just existed. Honest and simple. Some people chase applause, some chase peace. I'm just happy I stopped chasing noise.